really happening? That is the question. Hi, I am Nick Nowalczewski, the author of Deep Tunnel Project 2115, a National Novel Writing Month entry, a sci-fi, spy-fi novel set in the year 2115 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my hometown. Figured I haven't seen any sci-fi novels or spy novels set in Milwaukee, so I figured why not create one? It is basically detailing a human on alien assassination, deeper conspiracy. Uh, Still kind of developing the story itself, and just how I want to go with it right now. Right now, I'm basically basing it on what was a recurring villain group in a RPG sim that I'm in called Terra Pax, eventually Terran Imperium. Yes, it's a Star Trek novel group, but hey, you know, I'm a geek. Live long and prosper. Anyway, it's set in about late summer, early fall of 2115. Figured give 100 years, you know, and essentially with first contact between the alien race and humanity occurring about 10 to 15 years before the start of the story. So they've been around for a little while, not a ton of time, but long enough for some people to get outright pissed off at them and or thinking that they are these new invaders. Uh, you know, kind of taking a little step back from the usual future story. Uh, Essentially, too many of them kind of get too wild. I mean, okay, we've got aliens, we've got an agency similar to the Men in Black, but also allied with NASA. So basically, it's the NASA, CIA, FBI kind of joint agency based in what will be in our own future the Couture Towers being built on the lakefront near the West Bank Tower, which is currently being under construction, kind of part of the Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance uh, project that they're doing downtown. So I figured, okay, in about 100 years, what would remain? Obviously, since it's a newer building, it's pretty likely that it will be around, hopefully. Hopefully! And figured, well, it's a perfect spot given its location to three important areas. One, main downtown of the city. Two, it's near the War Memorial. So obviously I'm thinking, hey, we're going to have some military involvement, and if you're going to have an agency policing aliens, why not have them by the War Memorial? Third, it will also take place around the commissioning of the second USS Milwaukee. My main character, Mike Kasperjak, is a former Navy officer who got recruited into the agency and basically is coming back to his hometown or has come back to his hometown and basically just looking to pull a 9 to 5, basically, deal with hackers, smugglers, random stuff. Maybe a few aliens here and there. Generally kind of a nice guy. If I were to cast him in a TV show or a movie, I'd probably go like Josh Brolin type, you know, in a tall, rugged, down to earth, you know, uh, if he were still alive, somebody like, say, Jeffrey Hunter, the original Captain Pike from Star Trek, um, and also a Milwaukee native. Uh, we've also got a few characters I'm still in the process of locking down their character, how they look, how they act, how they think, how they feel, what do they dress like. Um, Looking at the future, our 100 years from now, think back to the future back in 1989. We thought we'd have flying cars. We thought we'd have dehydrated food. we'd have thumbprint. Well, we kind of got that. But, the future they predicted back in 89 is totally different than the 2015 we've got right now. Granted, we do have smartwatches, we have smartphones, we have touchscreen computers. I'm actually doing this on a touchscreen computer right now. So in some ways it got things right and got things wrong. So I'm figuring 100 years, we should have flying cars in 100 years. But, and this is the big thing, they're not going to necessarily be cars. They'll be more like kind of a weird bastardization between a scooter, kind of like a Lambretta scooter like you see in Italy, where it's basically a scooter front and a truck in the back. You know, so I'm thinking something that's small enough that if it were to hit, say, a building or another vehicle, the impact is minimal. You know, it's no worse than, say, you know, careening into a building with a bicycle or a motorcycle. Yeah, it's going to damage it, but it's not as bad as a car. Plus, I had a neat idea is that each hover vehicle will stack when you park them. So essentially, parking problems, especially downtown and downtown Milwaukee, are going to be a thing of the past because you can just stack, 10 high, whatever, and then you can just recall it down. Make use of the space without having necessarily a parking structure. Second bit of future tech we'll have, essentially mobile private networks, kind of like our mobile hotspots, but a little bit more robust, especially for our intelligence agents. They'll be able to do the reports, whatever, anywhere, via glasses and a handheld with a holographic screen that only they can see. So everything stays secure, everything stays secret. Unless you're wearing a pair of glasses, you're not going to see it. Fashions in 2115, I'm not predicting a massive change. I mean, even the difference between 1915 and 2015, they are different, true. But the difference between, say, even 1950 and now has changed. We got more casual. So I'm kind of seeing a pendulum swing from super casual to a little bit more formal. So for the guys, three-piece suits are back. Hats. It's a little bit more traditional, a little bit classier. Think kind of Madman redo, but a little bit more formal. They kind of the idea that hey, just going out in t-shirt and jeans, you can still do that, but most people will still get dressed up. For women, a little bit more colorful. I'm thinking 80s are going to be big again. 100 years. So bright colors, a little bit more wild, especially given that it is, a year that sounds pretty damn cool. I'm sure people will be like, we're in the future, just like they are right now, but taking it a step further. So, a little bit classier for men, a little bit more fun for women. I'm looking at basically thinking, okay, the 2115 that Bob Gale and Zemeckis came up with, or 2015, is closer to 2115. They just got it 100 years off. So there are some flying cars, there are some flying vehicles. Basically, I'm going to say that's because the aliens that we had first contact with basically taught us how to use repulsor lifts and other magnetic lifting devices. So we kind of evolved a little bit. But I'm not seeing, honestly, I don't see a massive change in technology and even in terms of society between even 2015 and 2115. We had a massive, think about the technological boost we had in just the past 60 years. We went from having no computers to having computers in our pockets, Google Glass, tiny microscopic things. So I could see basically maybe even in the next 20 to 50 years hitting a plateau, where we only get so far, and it's like, what, we can't go any further. We're as fast as, speed will always be a difference, but even think about now, you can still write emails, check a blog, do a lot of stuff on a computer from even 15 years ago. Will a computer from today be faster? Well, heck yeah. The processors are faster. The software has gotten better. But, like I say, you're doing basic stuff, checking email, writing a letter, writing a document, balancing a spreadsheet, doing a database. You don't need, say, a quad core or 8 core, let's say, uh, Intel i7, unlocked with turbo boost and, clocked up to 5-6 gigahertz just to do a spreadsheet. Overkill, So I think eventually there's going to be a point where good is good enough. You'll still have, the super high screamers that, for some stupid ass reason, developers, gaming, I'm thinking, other. So, the need for upgrading constantly is not going to be there anymore. So we'll be more comfortable. We'll be more, I mean, basically, they can probably say, hey, that computer's from 20 years ago. Works, does my job. Technically, a computer from now will still do. From 20 years ago, will do something now. Just software and developers always change things. So, anyway, kind of getting back on the story. By 2115, it's, I'm not going to get too fantastic, It'll basically be evolutions of what we've got right now. And I don't think we're going to change that drastically. Maybe holographic, stuff with the glasses, things in the air, where I can go, okay, boop, 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 bam. Okay, cool. But, so don't look for super fantastic stuff. 100 years, as far as weaponry goes, might have a few new toys, especially if we've got aliens that are helping us out, so maybe we'll have some particle weapon or beam weapon like a phaser kind of thing. But, honestly, how much you want to bet that even in 100 years, even if we did have access to that, the only ones that are going to have it are like high-end military, or they're going to be on ships or installations or something, and they're going to be classified, or they're just going to be expensive to operate or use or whatever. So we'll still be stuck with slug, your plain old slug shooter, you know, a gun in 2115 is still going to be a 2015 is going to be a gun in 2115. Not a huge difference. Maybe the bullets themselves will have something that can change its density or something. So maybe I'll work in something like that. The reason why I'm kind of going through a lot of this little bit of world building is so that I don't have to write as much, but I think I still will write a little prologue world building section to just kind of bring people into the world of 2115. What else? So basically, as I'm kind of have it outlined right now, be 2 or 3 major events and a couple smaller things. One major event will be kind of a group of, bunch of attacks against our alien allies in like one day. So not quite like a 9/11 scenario, but pretty damn close. This will be kind of like the. I'm still coming up with a name, so if anybody's got ideas for a good alien sounding name that doesn't sound too crazy, I'll be happy. I mean, I don't want to use anything that's very copyright, like, or even something overused like Rigelians or, not gonna be from Mars. Although I might have something about Mars in there too, so we'll see. Maybe some colony on Mars. Since then I just saw something on TV about them recruiting new astronauts. So who knows? Maybe we'll have a colony there. That's how we've got into meeting our new alien allies. They actually sent a probe out to Mars or something, or they picked up something we had a little bit further out in our solar system that bounced into the next galaxy or whatever. You know, and honestly, personally, I firmly believe that there is other intelligent life beyond us right here on this planet, in this solar system, in this galaxy. I mean, let's equate it to how people in Christopher Columbus's day. I mean, when they saw the edge of the world, and then it dropped off because of the horizon, they didn't quite realize the Earth was round. That's it. So whatever they could see, whatever they could walk to, that was the edge of the world. There was nothing else there. To even think that is blasphemy. And I think even some other religions today still think that the Earth is flat. So there are things that I think will definitely going to factor into it. I definitely see, you know, possibly as we've evolved as a human race, maybe in 100 years we'll be more ready for extraterrestrials. I mean, right now, I mean, think about it. If we were to have an alien show up, or even hint that they exist, we're gonna nuke the heck out of them. We're gonna fire off bombs, rockets, ships, whatever we've got, and we're gonna attack them. It's kind of we do, unfortunately. So I could see, maybe in 100 years, maybe attitudes have changed. Maybe there's some new developments, and we'll be more likely to be accepting of our alien brethren and take our place in the galaxy. Uh, Not kind of touching anything like Warp Drive or anything Star Trek. I mean, I'll put this out here right now. Yeah, I'm a huge Trekkie. I have written thousands of pages of the story, hundreds of characters, in various Star Trek sim groups. No, I even hesitate to call them this like RPGs because we're not necessarily, we're role playing, but it's not like the Dungeons and Dragons kind of role playing. It's more group fan fiction. Let's say that. Yeah, I like that better, group fan fiction. And I started out doing this with a group called Python Fleet way back in like 2001, and adapted my characters. And actually, right now, the sim that or group that I'm working with right now, the characters I'm writing now are basically the same characters I was writing back in 2001. So I've been writing these characters for like 14 years. Um, taking them to totally different ends, but it's the same characters. And I mean, some of these characters have actually had children, and I'm writing the children of the characters I created back in 2021 in 2001. So I don't see, you know, and even then too, thinking, okay, even in the past 15 years, how much has changed and how much has basically stayed the same. We haven't. Okay, it's year 2015. We don't have flying cars, and I mean, honestly, I think the future of today is not nearly as different as the future was back in even '89. I think a kid from 1985 would probably be freaked out because in 2015 we're still talking about Transformers, GI Joe, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters is having a new movie coming out. Um, there's stuff that we've been now what 4 Transformers movies, 2 GI Joe movies. There's so much retro stuff right now that I think honestly a kid from 1985 would probably feel like we didn't change that much, did we? I mean, granted, we've got cell phones now, we've got smartwatches, we've got touchscreen laptops, we've got big screen flat panel TVs, we've got a lot of things that we would probably somebody from 1985 wouldn't have expected. You know, like you know, president from Hawaii, allegedly, depending on how you feel about him. Um, we've got you know, our presidential race right now. We've got a black guy and a woman, actually 2 women, running for president. Which I mean, 85, you wouldn't have thought that would ever happen. We got Rubio, you got a Latino. I mean, so a lot of things societally have changed a little bit. Obviously the gay marriage stuff, but I think things haven't changed that much. Or at least to that point where you couldn't figure it out. It's not like back in '85. A kid from '85 coming to, put your thumb to the plate. Or voice activated everything. I mean, I live in a house built in 1954 or 55. It's about as old as my mom, and it's not anything different than the house that I lived in, that I grew up in, that was built in the 1800s. That was about 100 years old when I was a kid. So I mean, you know, let's think. I mean, that's my motivation for setting it in 2115. It still gives me some wiggle room for some fun stuff and kind of play with history, but also it's giving me a place where I can still feel comfortable writing current-ish things into it and it being accessible without having to explain a ton. Um, Now, in terms of the other event that's going to happen, so basically, we're going to there will be our alien assassinations, which will happen in Milwaukee, Racine, and probably we'll say Chicago too, just for the heck of it. Um, may or may not do it, but essentially the only reason why it's happening in Milwaukee, Racine, and Chicago is because of the launch of the new USS Milwaukee. The first USS Milwaukee is actually launching in a couple of weeks here in Milwaukee, which is kind of cool. And I've actually got tickets to this, so um, so that's kind of why I'm putting it in the story too. Because I figure, okay, in 100 years, chances are we might have another USS Milwaukee launching here. And my character being a former Navy officer, I thought that'd be kind of a cool add-in. But the reason why is the kind of anti-alien group is using that as a springboard for some more infamy. Maybe we'll say that the new USS Milwaukee actually has a alien ally crew. There's some crew members aboard that are alien, maybe even the XO or something. Uh, so they feel like, okay, you know what? Our country cannot be run by aliens. Our planet cannot be run by aliens. We must take back Earth for the humans. Terrapax, Terrapax. Thinking that by booting off the aliens, they're creating peace for humanity. So in some ways, it's kind of a nice little allegory to all the racial issues that we're kind of having now, um, and even immigrants, legal and illegal. Um, I mean, I'm the grandson of legal immigrants, from Poland, from Hungary. Not that far removed from the immigrant experience. So and I was thinking, if you come from another planet and you live here, chances are there's going to be some paperwork. You're going to be in a system. You're going to be watched by some men in black, and you're going to be, it's going to be legit. You're going to pay your taxes. You're going to do whatever. You're going to get jobs. You're going to go home. So I'm kind of seeing, so I want to kind of touch on it a little bit, kind of maybe express a little bit of my viewpoint into this. We'll see. We'll see how it kind of turns out. I don't want to get too preachy, and I don't want to get too controversial. Let's say. I mean, I'm writing a fun novel, sci-fi novel, spy-fi novel. It's not. This isn't a soapbox necessarily. Um, and then the third event will be basically a potential for a bigger attack. Like an ultimatum type thing, where basically have a race against the clock kind of thing, which might be a horror sci-fi spy trope, but I'm kind of wanting to set this up where eventually maybe the bad guys will win something, or they will be in power, which happens and doesn't happen always in sci-fi. And if anybody knows my other work, I had my bad guys actually win for a little bit, and still kind of win. Sometimes the good guys take it on the chin, and sometimes we don't. But it's going to be an interesting story, I think, especially considering the setting and the location. I'm planning on being very accurate to Milwaukee layout. Some buildings may change, obviously, because I'm going to have to fudge stuff, But bigger landmarks. I mean, if basically you grew up here, you're going to feel like, wow, hey, I'm reading about where I work, where I live. I know that building, I know that street, I know that intersection, and it's also going to keep me from not just bullshitting it and saying, hey, yeah, he went down Water Street to this street, and you're like, that doesn't cross. Water doesn't cross with that street. There's no. So I'm going to be very accurate. I'm going to look at maps. Another thing that kind of inspired me with this whole story too was the series of on Milwaukee.com. Bobby Tanzillo has a kind of a little series called Urban Spelunking, where he kind of goes into certain landmarks, buildings in town, and kind of gets where people don't usually get to. Um, and a couple of settings that I am planning on using are going to be directly based on some of those articles. So I'm going to kind of look into them and see, because I'm saying some of these buildings are already 100 years old, and they don't show any signs necessarily right now of being in danger. So, and given maybe possibly a preservation effort of keeping our history, one thing that I do very strongly believe in, and I will argue with anybody on this, is I firmly believe that a lot of the construction projects we got going on right now are not going to be here in 100 years. That's just, I mean, some of them will, but some won't. Um, the new arena that we're going to be building, honestly, if that lasts more than 30 years, I will be shocked because Bradley Center is only 30 years old ish, barely 30 years old. And we're already saying, "Oh, it's old, it's big, it's not what we need. If we don't get a new one, we're gonna move." So honestly, I bet you in probably another 40 years, 30 years, we're going to be having another debate right now about, oh, we need to keep the Bucks in Milwaukee or whatever the heck we call them. But, we need to keep them here in Milwaukee because, oh, um, it's important. And, we're going to be doing another big project, to give them a new stadium in another 30 years. One thing that I strongly have been against is if they're going to build a new stadium or arena or whatever, it needs to last. It needs to be built to last, and it needs to be built so that you can refit it and remodel it and update it and change it as needs change. Don't think like, okay, well, this is what we need in 2015 right now to be modern and to be competitive. Okay, great. But what if those needs change in 2020? And then we're already talking about, oh, well, we got to do another $2 million, $3 million in renovations after we already spent big bucks on it. I mean, Miller Park, thank God, has not had that issue yet, but they built it slightly smart that at least it would have those future add-ins. But how much you want to bet in another 10 years they're going to be begging us to remodel it again? So there'll be a few things. The streetcar project that is a huge source of controversy. I'm going to touch on that in a big way on this. That's going to be kind of funny, actually. I'm not going to spoil everything about how I touch on it, but there'll be some good parts and make people laugh a little bit about it. Basically, one term of screwing up will be called street card. It's like, man, you street card that one. Streetcar will be a synonym for screwed up big time. So, in terms of other little tidbits, like right now, everybody's Instagramming, Facebooking, YouTubing things. I don't see that changing, honestly. I mean, I could see it maybe being a little less, but in a way, I could see it being a little more, even in 100 years. I mean, think about it. And let's look at even the reasoning why people do this. I mean, part of it is just narcissism. Part of it is they just want to share it. I mean, you see something, you want to say, "Hey, look what I saw." You're going to tell people about it. I mean, it's no different than say back in even the early 1900s, where you saw something really wild and you tell people about it, or you drew it or painted it or wrote it or took if you had a camera, if you're one of the lucky few that had a camera, you would have taken a picture of it, or you would have based something on it. I mean, why do you think there were so many novels and artwork based on historical events? Because people were were present for this stuff, and they wanted to express what they saw, what they experienced, and even this stuff now. I mean, and then think about it, even in the 80s when I grew up. I mean, diary keeping, even before that, diary keeping was a big thing. Now people keep it on Facebook, or they keep a blog, or they keep a YouTube channel and just tell about their day. I had eggs for breakfast, and my car sucks, but So contribute to my GoFundMe page so I can get a new car. You know, it's people will still talk about themselves, and people will still share stuff. So I don't see that really changing. I mean, I think people will be annoyed by it for a while, but I see it coming back. Everything is cyclical, you know, uh, and I don't see a lot of massive changes in terms of even our technology use. I think we'll still be tethered to phones or computers and other things. Maybe it won't be as much, but maybe it might be the same, or maybe that's just how we'll communicate. I mean, like now you're seeing articles where they're talking about, oh, kids shouldn't spend time in front of a screen, and oh, they need to experience books and this and that. Same argument they have with TV back in the 50s. Radio. Kids shouldn't be sitting listening to radio. It's just the evolution of storytelling. I mean, I bet you probably once books became easy enough for anybody to get, I'm sure there were people that said, "Oh, you shouldn't be reading all those books. You're gonna strain your eyes. You're gonna need glasses. It's bad for your eyesight. Reading those tiny, tiny words. Oh, that's horrible. Don't read books. Tell stories. Why is your nose always in a book? I bet you. So if it's a book on a tablet or on a phone or on a holographic projector, it's going to be the same thing eventually. Maybe it'll be less glaring on the eye, or you can change the resolution and size so that it's not so hard. I mean, even now you can do that. Look at a Kindle, look at a Nook. It's What's the difference between that and a book? You know, so it's the evolution of things. Plus, I mean, you think about it too. In 100 years, you know, a lot of stuff will be digitized, and probably will be preferred to be digitized because people can actually get it. I mean, if I was even this novel I'm planning on writing, I'd probably, even if I somehow got a publisher, I don't know if I'd actually really want a paper book. Maybe I would, maybe, but I think I would do it more as an ebook, just to lend to the futuristic aspect, and the fact that I could include pictures and illustrations and other things that will kind of show what I'm talking about. I mean, like my alien race, I want to actually show what they look like. I want to, not just tell. I mean, I can tell and let people create their own vision of what it looks like. But at least I have a representation. So at least when people are looking at it, and they go, "Oh, yeah, okay, so that's why people are iffy, like they don't quite know." And one aspect is they're gonna have purple blood. I'm thinking, kind of cool, but alienish. I'm thinking back to the original Star Trek with the Vulcan or Klingons and their purple blood, and the Vulcans green blood, just different elements. So them having red blood would be, you came from a different planet. Even though ours is similar, so I'm thinking maybe there's some element that they have that it turns their blood more purple when it's exposed to oxygen. Do a little research into what elements would create that. Um, but in terms of look, I'm thinking, bipedal, 5 fingers, 5 toes, 2 eyes, a mouth, lips, nose, ears. The look similar to human, maybe a little bit different skin coloration. Um, Hair, I'm kind of debating between either just entirely bald or maybe a ridge or hair, but more like a fur. I don't know. I'm still kind of developing this right now, so it's still sort of in the development stage. Granted, I want to get this done by the end of the month, so I gotta get off and write this stuff. But this is good. I'm kind of planning it because actually I wouldn't mind writing more than one novel based on this, or even see if I can develop it into something. You know, like a little web series or something. It'd be kind of fun. Uh, in terms of even the the main characters, I may change that around. Uh, Basically, it'll center on my main agent character, my Kaz, whatever, uh, and his intern, Tina Mueller, German name, German city. Yeah, kind of cool. Anyway, but you know, so you got kind of this fun, perky character. It'll kind of be in a way like the audience participation kind of character. See it a little differently, but also too. am planning on using, this intern character as a plot point down the road. Basically, just kind of showing a little difference between, my early 40s agent and this mid 20s newbie, you know, thinks she wants to be the next Jane Bond or like basically or Sydney Bristow type character. That's why she joined the agency, and then she finds out that intelligence work is all a bunch of paperwork and watching monitors and following up on things. The agency, which I was originally calling the National Intelligence Agency, I thought, I don't like that name. And the National Alien Intelligence Agency, and so I'm still working on a new name. Essentially, they will deal with it's still a joint operation between CIA, FBI, NASA, and NSA. So in terms of that, I've got to figure out something that still works and turns into something. I'm I like my acronyms. I'm sorry. Like Shield, and Sword and Strike and Hammer and all these other weird comic names. I'm a big comics geek. What can you say? So, in conclusion, I think in future installations of these video series that I plan on doing, which I got the idea from my best friends, Megan Liberty. She's writing her book, The Blue Ridge Murders. I'll post a link to her thing below. Um, but that's the title she's going to call it. Even the title of my book right now, Deep Tunnel Project 2115, that's kind of a working title. I might come up with something more creative than that. Deep Tunnel Project, as people in Milwaukee will know, that was a big sewage project, infamous sewage project, back in the 90s up to like the 2000 something or whatever, where we basically built a deep tunnel underneath the city for all our sewage and stuff to keep it from going into Lake Michigan. You know, so I thought that kind of was a good analogy for an undercurrent of sludge and sewage and slime and crap with this anti-alien group, and it just sounds cool, deep tunnel. You know, will I keep it? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Might just turn out to be an operation name or something, or what they call it in the book, and I'll call the actual novel something different. But for now, it's Deep Tunnel Project 2115. Uh, right now, only got about a little over a chapter and a half written. Uh, but I'm basically doing more research right now and just developing my characters. I want to outline everything. My outline is pretty much complete. I've kind of got a general idea of where I'm going to go with it. It's just a matter of writing it now, but at least I got to that point, so I feel good about that. I mean, here it is, the 8th, and I'm got at least one chapter written, plus an outline of where I want to go from there. Still kind of working out some other characters. Right now, the first chapter is mainly my lead character, his intern, and setting up the bad guys. So as far as first chapters go, it's not too bad. I'm kind of happy with it. I might change a few things around, make it longer, make it shorter. I don't know. We'll see. Want to keep it short. I'm going to basically make this a novel that you can read in a weekend and still feel satisfied, like you actually read something and did something. In terms of the rating, I would give it. I'm going to keep it like PG-13. Kind of keep it so that it can be accessible. Nothing that would people would feel like, oh, it's got all kinds of swearing and graphic violence and sex. Yeah. I want this to be a book that even I can give my priest and he'll say, "Hey, this is fun. This is cool." I feel like I'm there. And one thing that I do want to keep in there too is my main character. Hey, you always say write what you know. So hey, my main character is a Polish guy. Grew up in Milwaukee. South Side area, North Side area. Kind of down to earth, normal. Not a really overly flashy kind of person. our typical Milwaukee people, uh, in term and the Navy thing, uh, we've got a small, the Coast Guard base, Great Lakes down further. He probably went to Great Lakes where my grandpa actually went when he was in the Navy back in the 50s on the USS FDR and the Coral Sea, both of which were decommissioned back in the 70s. But, hey, everything built, World War II era and around that point, they weren't built to last. I mean, I even see the new USS Milwaukee lasting 50, 60 years, just because we're not building it in a rush. We're not building it for a war. We're building it for, kind of, but, we're not building it because we're building up. We're just building it because it's the new next generation of chips. So it should be kind of neat. In terms of the other bad guys and stuff, I mean, I don't want him to be overly sympathetic, but I want him to basically be like, oh, yeah, you kind of got a point there, what if an alien were to be elected mayor, president not really, but mayor. We've got, some other planet influencing our planet. Even Star Trek was like, hey, doesn't that violate the Prime Directive? Well, does it? Is it? I don't know. Read the book. you know. Another thing that I want to kind of touch on too is just a accessible future. A future where it's still hopeful, but it doesn't feel too pie in the sky. It doesn't or doesn't feel too boring. I mean, I want it to be a future that you can go, yeah, hey, I want to live there, and I want to see that happen. Make it happen. You know, but I don't want it to be too crazy where it's like, really, we're at that point now in 50 years or 100 years. A couple of influences that I'm looking at. So if you're a fan of, say, Men in Black, Agents of Shield, uh, maybe even stuff like X Files, Covert Affairs, Almost Human, Minority Report, those kind of futuristic, kind of future crime kind of things. Uh, will there be like a Big Brother aspect? Possibly. I mean, maybe not as invasive, but pretty close because we're kind of at that point now in 2050. I don't think we're going to give up that much, unless something massive happens that sets up like a whole paradigm shift in how society is in 100 years. Um, but, and will there be, some romance and other stuff? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it works with the story. I'm not writing a romance novel. I'm not writing a relationship book. I'm writing a sci-fi spy novel. So, we'll see. You know, it. My characters. I think, from what I've always written, are interesting to read, but accessible. You know, you feel like these people. And my bad guys, you feel like you want to either hate them, kill them, or you kind of like them in some ways. I mean, or you can at least see where they're coming from. You may say, yeah, this guy is double-incarnate, but but he does make one or two good points here and there. Not quite like a Loki, Tom Hiddleston kind of thing, but maybe more along the lines of, say, a maybe like Hydra from Shield. Like where they make some points, but they're clearly on the bad side. They want to rule the world. Uh, so obviously, but at least they think they're doing the right thing from their point of view. So that's kind of where I'm coming from too. Is they're bad, but they're doing it what they think is right from their end. That they think that by making it inhospitable for aliens to be here, that they'll somehow leave, go far back to their planet, and leave Earth for humans, and go back to the way things were, even though this has happened. They've been here 20 years, maybe 15, 20 years at this point. And, you know, unless you're older, you're not going to, like say, I basically want to turn it like where essentially somebody young will have always basically remembered having, knowing you were around. Aliens when you read a movie, a novel or read a book or watch a movie or TV show or something, aliens don't seem scary, or at least don't seem alien. Like, oh, okay. Obviously different races of aliens. Like say Mr. Spock will be. I mean, even they can joke like, "You got it totally wrong, dude. No one's got pointed ears anywhere. Different skin, different, pointed ears, big ridges. Come on, Roddenberry, what were you smoking back in the '60s? Or in the '80s, I should say. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'll put it that way. I think anybody that'll read it is going to have a good time, and it won't feel like the typical sci-fi novel. But still enough sci-fi that I think I'll get my enjoyment out of writing it. Now, in terms of future installations of this, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, this one is turning pretty long, and I thank you for whoever's watching this and actually sticking through this massive, massive thing. But consider yourself one of the insiders. Things that may end up in the book, may not end up in the book, or the reason why they ended up in the book. Uh, and I know I say a lot, and but hey, live with it. It's Milwaukee. You know what I mean? Milwaukee. And yes, that's how you pronounce it. As a true Milwaukeean, it's Milwaukee. A water fountain is a bubbler. We don't drink pop. We drink soda. Coke is soda. Uh, obviously coffee is coffee. And coffee will be a massive, massive part of this story. Uh, my main character is addicted to it. So there's going to be scenes where it's going to come to comic effect too. Where he goes for his favorite cup of coffee and it's like, it's empty. And people will tease him mercilessly. So it'll be kind of funny. Kind of thinking of like Janeway from Voyager. There's coffee in that nebula. I've got a ton of ideas. I can't wait to put them down on paper, and I can't wait for you to read them. I think something that I've kind of enjoyed doing for the past few years has been writing stuff with my friend Megan and Jenny and Sarah and Krista and others and Kirby. Uh, but beyond our little group, not too many people are actually reading our stuff. Maybe a few random people that I see like in the IP addresses. Who knows? They're just maybe bot spiders and stuff that are reading it. But it'll be nice to have something that more than one person, a handful of people will read. I hope. If I ever have this published into an actual paper book, I don't want to see this in the dollar store, Dollar Tree for $1. No, I'm not expecting to be the next Richard Castle, but hey, I'm not really ruggedly handsome, but I get cute cheeks. Now, in terms of the NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month thing, will I be done by the end of the month? Don't know. Really, honestly, at this point, they get the length that I want. We'll see. I'm starting a new job, and obviously I've got other commitments, so writing a novel isn't necessarily going to be a top priority. But we'll see what I can write on breaks and lunch, and after work, and a cup of coffee, and get creative. And the nice thing is, there's a Starbucks directly across from where I'm working, and a Barnes and Noble. So there should be almost no excuse why I can't at least bang out a chapter every couple of days. So maybe by the end of the month I will have something. And if I don't, it's the first draft, and that's what the National Novel Writing Month thing is all about. Just creating writers and getting new stories out and at least getting it started. So if I can at least say, okay, I've got my first draft and get it to my beta reader and revise it, maybe by the end of the year I can have something up. Who knows? That'd be kind of cool. I'm a photographer. And that's what I do. So I want to actually take a lot of pictures of the city, do some Photoshop tweaking, make them push it forward 100 years. And I'll give it a little bit of flavor so that you're not just reading me telling you about this. I mean, obviously, I'll still describe everything, but you can see it. You can see the tower they work in. You can see the streets that they're working on. You can see the area, where the crime scenes will be. You can see the areas where I'm thinking of having their bases, the bad guys' bases, and where people are hiding out. Because sometimes you can describe it, and what you see here and what you see here are totally different. So, I also too. I mean, and I'm a photographer. I want to take pictures. I want to show off my skill and show off my city. I'm looking at this as kind of like a love letter to Milwaukee. Where nothing. I mean, basically, think about it. For over as long as Milwaukee's been Milwaukee, for over 100 years, we've basically been in the shadow of Chicago. Sorry, Chicago guys, we have been. We love you and we hate you. So I kind of want to have like something really cool happen here in my hometown that gets like national, international, galactic attention, and will actually be just something that kind of puts us on the map again. Uh, and I can even touch on that too. Like my character, my intern character kind of complains. You know, I want to do something more than just going after hackers and smugglers and an alien gets a parking ticket and we got to help him deal with it or something. Well, where's the excitement? Where's the I want to catch a terrorist or go after a really bad guy. I want to get my gun out and be James Bond. And Mike, we'll just laugh and go, why did you want to be here in Milwaukee? Nothing happens here. Go to Chicago, go to New York, go to LA, and then they're constantly bitching that there's always something going on, or they're under budget, or here in Milwaukee, on the other hand, we've got budget. We've got a cushy office you can sit in and relax. You're not working your ass off. You're not under fire all the time. You may actually live to your retirement and retire with a government pension. You know, and that's kind of one of the benefits that Mike actually saw to taking a position, even though he was he's a great agent. Taking it here versus going there is because he doesn't want to work that hard. He doesn't want to. He wants to live to his retirement. And I want to say, yeah, and worse things happen in Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, other port cities. And stuff may still happen off, I guess we'd say off screen, obviously on page. So, in terms of that, there's going to be some, but it's going to be kind of a love letter to Milwaukee. I want to show like, hey, I love Milwaukee. It's a great town to live in. It's a great place to visit, stay. We got the big city feel, but with a small town vibe. I kind of consider myself an ambassador for Milwaukee in some ways. So, obviously, especially after this past year with, the crime rate we've had, the murders, the carjackings, the robberies, just the weird, nasty stuff that's happened. People are calling it kill walk. And it hurts. See, the town that I grew up in all my life, basically, people are scared to be here, so I'm kind of taking some of that zeitgeist too, in some ways I'm kind of creating that too, like where, we go through a nice period where we actually clean up the town. We got the right leadership in place, and we got you know jobs up and crime down, and things are decent. We may not be the hippest city in the town in the country, but we're pretty damn cool. You know, kind of quirky, artsy. And we've got a lot to offer. You know, and safer. And that'll be one reason too why a lot of aliens. I've still got to come up with a name. So please, anybody, come up with a name for me or give me some idea. I would love to get some feedback on that. Just so at least I've got. I mean, I was going to call him the Woggy, WOGGI. I don't know why I came with Woggy, but I don't want to go with Woggy. But something cool. Otherwise, I'm just going to call them allies. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm thinking, what would we call another race from another planet without sounding racist? We gotta be PC. No, with especially with any kind of novel, there's going to be a lot of revisions. So, a lot of things that I'm planning on right now, that even if we were to get my first chapter, probably may change drastically by the time I finish it. Characters may change, merge, be replaced, be added. Um, and I do plan on adding some of my friends. So, people I know will be added into this here and there, and names were changed to protect the innocent, or if you are innocent. And it's gonna be interesting. So stick with me. Probably do another shorter vlog maybe next week. We'll see. I'm starting a job this week, so I don't know, but we'll see. You know, we'll I'll have some more to tell and kind of go through some of my other inspiration behind what I'm doing and take it from there. So I want to thank my best friend Megan the Liberty for doing her own vlog, and even though she is still about as nervous and rambled about as much as I did, and I still think I rambled a lot. So thanks for bearing with me. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up, comment. There'll be a link to my Facebook page down here somewhere, and we will see what else we can come up with. I mean, I might even try to see if I can get maybe do something on location somewhere. Maybe one of the locations that I plan on writing in the novel, and do a short blog about that. So we'll see. You're along for the ride with me, and I hope it'll be fun. Until next time, have a great week, and keep those pencils and pens and keyboards clacking, and finish writing those novels, writers. We got, let's see, about 22 days to go. Let's see a bunch of novels. Talk to you later.